things are not looking great right now. And no, it's not the fact that Russell Wilson's going to be traded or anything. It's the fact that tension seems to just continue to brew day by day. More and more reports come out about the Seahawks being more unhappy with Russell Wilson being more unhappy with the Seahawks. And I don't think Russell Wilson is going to be traded this offseason. I don't think that he is going to request a trade, demand a trade. He's not going to really say that he's going to sit out the season. He's not going to just stop playing like Deshaun Watson. I don't think the Seahawks will be able to trade them because it's a huge cap hit. And even after June 1st, when the cap hit is a little bit lower, teams are going to have their rosters completely set. So they're not really going to be trading for anyone huge and getting rid of a ton of people. So I don't really think Russell Wilson's going to be traded, but all of these reports coming out kind of just continue to build the tension. Even if there's not that much tension between the Seahawks and Russell Wilson, these things coming out about Russell Wilson wanting to be traded, the Seahawks are answering calls. They're shopping Russell Wilson because they're answering calls now. It definitely probably gets under Russell Wilson's skin and probably gets under the skin of people in the Seahawks organization. Even if they don't have any bad blood between each other, just having all this continue to come out is probably getting annoying to them, and they want to, I don't know, that might lead to some bad things happening. But in this video, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the current situation that I mentioned a little bit earlier that has come out about how the Seahawks are answering calls, calling back teams that are interested in Russell Wilson. So, obviously, the people are going to say they are shopping Russell Wilson. And first, I want to say, I am clickbaiting this title because guess what? Everyone else is clickbaiting the title saying that Russell Wilson is going to be traded. I'm going to clickbait it to say that he's not going to be traded. I think that I am just kind of, doing the bad to do the good. It's just kind of one thing. And then second, one thing I want to mention at the beginning of this video is if the problem lies between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson. I had a little community post about this earlier. If the problem lies between Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson, if that is why Russell Wilson's upset because he doesn't have the control, because Pete Carroll won't give him any control, get rid of Pete Carroll, all right? Fire Pete Carroll. A lot of people are in agreement that Pete Carroll is not as important as Russell Wilson to the Seahawks right now. If the Seahawks lose Pete Carroll, they're going to be fine if they keep Russell Wilson. If they lose Russell Wilson and keep Pete Carroll, guess what? We're not going to have any chance of making the playoffs, especially in one of the most talented, if not the most talented and toughest divisions in the NFL. So obviously, we have to keep Russell Wilson by any means necessary. If we have to get rid of Pete Carroll, fine. I do not care about Pete Carroll if that means that we keep Russell Wilson. I'd like everything to just be hashed out. We just, get an offensive line and everything's just fine. But if worst comes to worst, then we get rid of Pete Carroll before we get rid of Russell Wilson. That is just a given. That is something that must happen if it comes to that point. Now, what I want to talk about is obviously all the reports that are coming out about how the Seahawks have answered calls, that they're shopping Russell Wilson, and obviously there's been a lot of things going around saying the Seahawks are kind of interested in trading Russell Wilson because they have set an asking price of at least 3 first-round picks. Now, that is definitely an outlandish asking price because it should be a lot higher, honestly. 3 first-round picks, especially for the Seahawks, who haven't had a good first-round pick since last year in Jordan Brooks, and that's still, he still has to prove himself. They haven't had a good first-round pick since then, really. So, we really need to, not focus on the first-round picks. First-round picks are definitely overrated. That's something that the Rams have shown. They've been successful for quite a while by trading away their first-round picks. So if you trade away 3 first-round picks for Russell Wilson, who might be with your team for the rest of his career, that is 100% worth it for any team in the NFL. So that's why the Seahawks shouldn't trade him. But the one thing I want to talk about is, people are talking about due diligence. Like, oh, the Seahawks, of course, are answering calls because you answer calls for any player. But then those same people will say, but you don't answer calls for people like Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers and stuff like that, right? Russell Wilson is on that list. You don't answer calls for Russell Wilson. I don't care about due diligence. I don't care if the Bears come in offering every single player on their team and every first-round pick they'll have for the rest of this decade. You do not trade Russell Wilson because he is the guy. He is the franchise quarterback. He is basically the centerpiece of the entirety of Seattle when it comes to the sports world. Russell Wilson is the man of Seattle. He is the man of the Seahawks. If you get rid of him, the Seahawks are nothing. So why would you ever think about trading him? I understand due diligence, but when it comes to Russell Wilson, due diligence doesn't exist. You get the phone, you get that call, they're calling, hey, you want to talk about Russell Wilson? No. You don't answer the call, all right? You don't talk to them about trading for Russell Wilson because guess what? Russell Wilson sees you're talking about actually potentially trading him. You're actually answering the calls. What's that going to do? Is that going to make him any happier? That's a completely idiotic move in my opinion. He's not going to be traded. There's really no way he can be traded, but still, it is really dumb that the Seahawks are even answering calls. Russell Wilson, no matter how much tension has been built up by the organization, no matter how much they don't want to build an offensive line for some reason, Russell Wilson is not the guy that you even answer phone calls for. He is like Patrick Mahomes. The phone calls, they shouldn't even be picked up. And if they are picked up, they should be hung up immediately and say, we are not trading him, type of thing. How are the Texans more willing to say they are not trading Deshaun Watson, who has deliberately stated he's not going to be playing for their team next year, than the Seahawks are? How are the Seahawks less willing to stay close-knit with Russell Wilson, saying, we are keeping him, we are not even going to think about trading him, than the Texans are with a player who is literally not going to play for them next year if he's on the team? That doesn't make any sense. The Seahawks are they're dealing with the situation so horribly, and I think that comes down a lot to Pete Carroll. I think Pete Carroll has a lot of pride, and since all this stuff is coming out, maybe none of this is Pete Carroll. But from what I've seen, Pete Carroll has some issues where he doesn't answer to people. He doesn't want to give up control. He wants to be the guy that kind of decides everything, and he's stuck in 1902. He's stuck where the dinosaurs were playing with a rock playing football. All right, he is not the guy that you want to listen to when it comes to the offense, because he likes to run the ball. Russell Wilson is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You use him, especially with such weapons like DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and probably a bunch of good tight ends that we're going to be bringing in, because Shane Walton wants tight ends in his scheme because that's what worked well in LA. I mean, this whole situation makes no sense, and like I said before, if this is on Pete Carroll, the issues are Pete Carroll, get rid of Pete Carroll. I do not care about Pete Carroll when it comes to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is more important than any single person in the Seahawks organization, all right? I do not care if we get rid of Pete Carroll, if we get rid of every single GM, every single scout, or whatever we have, anyone who doesn't want to include Russell Wilson in the process of putting together an offense, get rid of them. I do not care about those people if it means Russell Wilson stays on the team, because Russell Wilson, no matter which way you think of it, Russell Wilson is the guy that is making Seattle a playoff team, a Super Bowl contender every single year. And if the whole team stays the same and we get rid of Russell Wilson and say maybe we trade him to the Bears for Mitchell Trubisky, God forbid, we are literally not going to even come close to making the playoffs. In the NFC West, one of the most difficult divisions, if not the most difficult. It makes no sense why we would trade Russell Wilson, and there's really not much more to bring into this conversation. Everything's been talked about in 3 different videos for me so far, and a bunch of different videos and social media posts for everyone else. This is just another thing that comes out for this Russell Wilson situation, and it's just so annoying. I wish it would just stop, because it's pretty clear the Seahawks cannot really trade Russell Wilson. If they trade Russell Wilson, they're taking a huge cap hit, and they're not going to get anything worth what Russell Wilson is in return. And I do not care about everyone talking about how Sierra cares. She wants to go to Chicago because she really likes Chicago. The Chicago Bears have Jermaine Ifedi. The guy that's been getting memed for the entirety of the Seahawks offensive line, because there's this clip going viral about him asking Chandler Jones what moves he's going to be putting on him because he didn't watch film. That is Jermaine Ifedi, who got dropped last year. He didn't get re-signed in free agency and went to the Bears. Why would Russell Wilson want to go to the Bears and be behind Jermaine Ifedi again? Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But still, I don't think that he's going to be traded. I don't think Russell Wilson is the kind of guy that is going to refuse to play. Russell Wilson, no matter how much controversy is going up, even though it's literally people putting words into his mouth, because the only words I've heard him say about this entire situation that has sparked everything has been him saying, hey, yeah, I've been sacked almost 400 times. How about I, don't do that because I want to have a long career. That's really all he said. And then he was asked, leading questions by the guy who was interviewing him. And he basically answered, yeah, I'd like a little bit more control than I have right now. Russell Wilson hasn't really said anything himself wrong. I'd love for him to come out with a statement and just be like, hey, I just want to be protected. I don't care about leaving the Seahawks. I don't want to be traded. I just want the Seahawks to, build an offensive line. He can't really do that, but I'd love for him to just come out with a statement, because he's been very quiet on social media. He's been very quiet about this whole thing, and it's really annoying because I think he could clear the air very well, but maybe he does want to go. I mean, no one really knows what Russell Wilson wants. No one knows what the Seahawks wants, but all these reports coming out, putting words in Russell Wilson's mouth, putting words in the mouth of the Seahawks organization, are just really annoying to see. I would love for that to just stop, and we could just kind of move on. I want to talk about other things, but with more and more things coming out about Russell Wilson every single day, it seems like you kind of are forced to talk about it. But I mean, hopefully we'll have at least a week of just peace and quiet about the Seahawks situation with Russell Wilson, and I'll be able to talk about some of the things I want to talk about. Hopefully we can get into free agency, and maybe the Seahawks will just pick up some offensive linemen, and then the whole situation will be fixed, because I would love to keep Russell Wilson here. I don't think Russell Wilson will leave, and I would hate if he did. And if Russell Wilson did get traded and it was based on Pete Carroll making the decision, or someone in the Seahawks organization making the decision, and Russell Wilson did not demand a trade or refuse to play, then I mean, I support Russell Wilson. If the Seahawks don't build an offensive line and Russell Wilson wants out next year, I will 100% support him in that decision, because Russell Wilson deserves to have an offensive line to protect him. He's one of the best quarterbacks in the league, and he needs to be protected like one. He wants his career to be long, and at this rate of being sacked 400 times, him not having an injury is just a blessing from God that is just unheard of. So, I mean, we got to get him some protection so he can't get injured. You know, we need him. All right. Don't trade him. Build him an offensive line. Keep him uninjured. And boom, we have a chance to win the playoffs and go to the playoffs, maybe win the Super Bowl every single year. So just keep Russell Wilson, build an offensive line. That's all the Seahawks need to do. Pete Carroll, stop being stubborn. You know, stop staying in the dinosaur age. You know, maybe the ice age, it kind of froze his brain. He's still stuck in that time, you know. Maybe he'll become unthawed from that era, but, you know, it's just so annoying. I mean, this video was all over the place. It was kind of like a one take, surprisingly enough. I didn't stumble over my words too much, but hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully you can kind of agree or kind of get anything that I said in this video and, you know, kind of get anything from it. But let me know down below in the comments what you thought about this whole situation. The Seahawks, quote unquote, shopping Russell Wilson because they're answering phone calls. I don't think they should answer phone calls. Just keep Russell Wilson, build an offensive line. If worse comes to worse, get rid of Pete Carroll. We literally have Eric Bieniemy, who is one of the best offensive coordinators, one of the best people that you can sign. If we got rid of Pete Carroll, signed that guy, I mean, my God, we'd be chilling. But I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. I don't know the actual potential of, you know, signing Eric Bieniemy if we did get rid of Pete Carroll, but I mean, this whole situation is just very wonky. I want to talk about a lot of other things, so I'm probably going to do that even if more stuff happens with Russell Wilson, unless by some ungodly way there's a trade sometime soon. But, you know, until next video, I'll see you guys then. Leave a comment down below about your situation, about your thoughts on the situation with the Seahawks and Russell Wilson. Like the video if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and with that, I'd like to thank you for watching. Have a great day.